Welcome to this 3M window film training video on impact protection profile installation. This video will demonstrate the installation procedures for 3M brand impact protection profile, a flexible mechanical security film attachment system. Following these procedures will help you deliver a high-quality, effective film attachment application. This training video is intended for 3M authorized window film dealers and applicators. IPP installation is easy to learn. You'll learn how to prepare a project site in order to properly install IPP, how to use the IPP installation system, and the procedures for installing IPP on a window. Before learning how to install IPP, it's important that you understand the basic principles of how to select the proper size of IPP and other project site factors to help determine whether IPP is suitable for the project. Ensure that the selected size of IPP is appropriate for the project. When flexed in a symmetrical 90-degree orientation, IPP must comfortably span the existing window gasket. The maximum gasket width for BP 950 is 5/16 of an inch. For BP 700, the maximum gasket width is 3/16 of an inch. IPP is only suitable for metallized frame systems. There must be at least 1.5 inch of flat frame surface perpendicular to the glass in order to use the IPP installation system. Do not apply IPP on sloped frame surfaces, wood frames, or other surfaces where IPP does not fit easily. To verify that IPP is suitable for the project, conduct a simple adhesion test. Apply a short strip of IPP to the frame by removing one of the liner strips and affixing the IPP to the frame using sufficient pressure and a roller tool. Wait a minimum of 6 hours to allow the adhesive bond to cure, and then check adhesion by peeling off the profile at 90 degrees. If the IPP peels cleanly from the frame, 3M Primer 94 will be required. Conduct a separate adhesion test by cleaning the surface with 3M Primer 94. The adhesion is satisfactory when the IPP leaves behind foam adhesive residue during the peel test. Installing IPP requires very few materials. In addition to the impact protection profile, you'll need the 3M IPP installation system, a profile cutter, Phillips head screwdriver, and a utility knife. You will also want to have 3M brand Primer 94, protective rubber nitrile gloves, tape measure, lint-free towels, 3M citrus base cleaner, and a white grease pencil. We will now go through general preparation and window cleaning instructions. Installing IPP requires that the window frame must be clean and completely dry. Moisture will affect the bond strength. The window film must also be substantially cured to avoid film lifting off the glass during the IPP installation. Never install IPP the same day as film. It is recommended to allow the film to cure for at least 7 days before applying IPP. To prep and clean the frame surface, use rubbing alcohol or 3M citrus base cleaner. If priming the frame surface is necessary to promote adhesion, note that 3M Primer 94 can be used as both a cleaner and primer in one step. An alternative to 3M Primer 94 is 3M Adhesion Promoter 111. Do not use soapy water to clean the frame. Soapy residue will reduce the bond strength of IPP. Never use abrasive pads or cleaning agents on the film surface. IPP must be installed using the 3M IPP installation system. It's designed for the BP 950 and BP 700 profiles and ensures these are applied properly, with straight lines, accurate miter cuts, and strong anchorage to the window film system. Let's take a look at the features and components of the IPP installation system. The IPP tool consists of the following features. Profile alignment surface. These are the two contoured surface channels on opposite sides of the tool. They're used to initially position and guide the profile onto the window. The wide alignment surface is for the larger BP 950 profile. The narrow surface is for the BP 700 profile. On both sides of the alignment surfaces are the positioning flats. These flats rest against the frame and film surface to lock the profile into place during installation. On opposite ends of the alignment surface are the alignment crest and the alignment lead-in. The alignment crest is the narrower end near the housing top. It ultimately flexes the profile into the required 90-degree shape. The lead-in is the wider section of the alignment surface located near the cutting plate end of the tool. The lead-in eases the flat profile into the alignment surface. When using the alignment surfaces of the tool to position the profile, it's important to hold the tool properly so that the IPP enters the lead-in and exits the crest section to lock the profile into place. The cutter knob is the rotating knob that drives the miter cutting blade. Rotate clockwise approximately 1 revolution to cut through the profile. A spring-loaded return mechanism within the tool helps return the cutter knob to its original position. Near the bottom end of the tool is the profile cutting slot, the cavity where IPP is inserted for making properly mitered corner cuts. Each tool comes with 2 aluminum cutting plates which help stabilize the inserted IPP during cutting. The cutting plates have markings denoting which profile size they're to be used for and which side results in a left or right end miter cut. The plates have narrow measuring pockets to help execute certain types of miter cuts, which will be discussed later. The blade mechanism refers to the apparatus inside the tool housing consisting of a standard utility blade, blade mount, and threaded drive mechanism. It's part of the IPP tool housing top. The IPP tool housing refers to the main body of the tool that contains the alignment surfaces, positioning flats, cutting slot, and return springs. We will now provide general instructions for using the IPP tool, including how to replace the blade, how to adjust and verify the blade position, and how to use other features of the IPP tool. To replace blades or to set the position of the blade, first remove the 2 screws from the IPP tool housing top and pull the blade mechanism out of the IPP tool housing. For blade replacement, loosen the 2 screws in the blade mount, carefully remove the blade, and safely dispose of it in a sharps container. Replace with a new utility blade and then tighten the screws to secure. Make sure these 2 screws are very tight, and check that the blade is seated properly. There should be no visible gap between the blade and the blade mount clamp. The orientation of the blade must be set and depends on the size of the profile you're using. To set the blade orientation, align the arrow on the top of the blade mount with the number on the tool housing that indicates the IPP size. Now reassemble the IPP tool. Make sure the posts on the blade mount are inserted into both of the springs. Position the housing top so that it matches with the main body of the tool, and then fasten it with the screws. You can verify the blade orientation without disassembling the tool by simply observing the blade angle from within the cutting slot cavity. Remove the cutting plate, rotate the cutting knob to bring the blade into view, and inspect its angle relative to the profile cutting slot. When the blade angle is tilted more towards the profile cutting slot, it is set for BP 950. When the angle blade is tilted away from the cutting slot, it is set for BP 700. The cutting plate is magnetically held into place. To remove, simply slide the plate underneath the screws. It's not necessary to loosen or remove these screws. Reverse the plate to switch between left and right cuts, or insert a different plate as needed for use with BP 700 or BP 950. The tool provides a convenient way of making precise miter cuts in the required contoured shape. Depending on how the profile is inserted into the cutting slot, a left or right end miter cut will result. Determining which way to miter cut can be confusing. A simple method is to view the profile strip from the perspective of the center of the glass. This is an easy way to identify the left and right ends of a profile and applies to all sections of the window, including the frame header, sill, and both frame jambs. To make a left-end miter cut, position the cutting plate so that the letter L for left is visible. For right-end miter cuts, the letter R must be visible. It's important to understand that the profile must always be flexed in the same direction as the cutting plate arch. When making a right-end miter cut, the arch faces outwards. So the profile must also be flexed outwards when inserting into the cutting tool. Insert IPP through the cutting slot until it extends to the other side. Only insert straight cut ends of IPP with the tape liner on to avoid the profile getting stuck in the cutting slot. Cut the profile by rotating the cutter knob about 1 revolution until it stops. Release the knob to back the blade out and pull out the profile from the cutting slot. Discard the trimmed portion of IPP. Now that you've learned about the IPP installation tool, you're well on your way to understanding how to install IPP. We will now go through the complete installation process for installing IPP on all 4 sides of a window. For best results, install the profile strips in the proper order. Install IPP along the frame sill first, followed by the frame jambs, with the last piece installed along the header of the window. First, measure the lengths of individual profile strips. Add about 4 inches to each measurement, and use an anvil cutter to cut the profile. Make sure your cuts are flat and straight. Install IPP along the bottom section first. Remove about 6 inches of tape liner from one end. This section of liner should flare out from both sides of the profile. Avoid touching the adhesive tape with your fingers. Holding the edges of the profile, flex the IPP so that the 2 adhesive strips are perpendicular to each other. Stick the flexed profile into the corner of the window frame. Position the end of the profile about 1/8 of an inch from the corner. This small gap is necessary to allow space for the next piece of profile. Gently tack down the first 6 inches from the corner by hand. Do not use too much pressure here because this section is applied by hand. It may need to be adjusted later using the tool. Without stretching it too much, keep a small amount of tension by pulling towards the other corner of the window. This helps maintain alignment. Now use the IPP tool to align the rest of the profile. Place the alignment surface over the IPP with the cutter knob facing the near corner and the cutting plate facing the remaining uninstalled section of profile. Ensure that the positioning flats are pressed flush against the window frame and film surfaces. With one hand holding the tool, remove the tape liner and move the tool across to the other end of the window. Maintaining tension will help guide the IPP into the alignment surface of the tool. As you approach the other end, set the tool aside. Leave the last 6 inches of tape liner on and make a straight, flat cut on the end of the profile, leaving a 1/8 inch gap like before. Be careful not to cut the end too short, as this would require installing a new piece of IPP. it's better to gradually trim down to the desired final length. Now pull off the remaining liner and use the tool to complete alignment. Check the straightness of the profile strip. Since the initial section was applied by hand, you may need to realign it with the tool. To do this, simply pull this section of profile off the window and straighten it out using the IPP tool. If you have to realign the profile, you'll want to peel away as cleanly as possible. If it's bonded too strongly, it could leave behind adhesive residue or pull film away from the glass. This is why it's best to avoid applying too much pressure when sticking the initial sections by hand. Now that the IPP has been positioned onto the window frame, it's time to use the roller tool. Place the wheel directly in the center of the profile and apply firm pressure along its entire length. Press the roller squarely and deeply into the center to ensure that the adhesive strips completely wet out on both the film and frame surfaces. Use the handle of the roller to firmly tack down the ends of the profile in both corners. Now that the bottom piece has been installed, apply the vertical sections next. The vertical strips can be applied in either a downward or upward direction. Both methods have their advantages and disadvantages. With a downward direction, the advantage is that profile drapes down naturally, which tends to result in easier handling during its positioning onto the glass. The drawback, however, is that you must finish with a miter cut. This requires more precision and is more difficult, while the profile is partially installed on the window. The advantage with installing in an upward direction is that the mitered end is easily created. However, the handling of the profile is a little more difficult. We'll demonstrate both methods here so you can see the difference. When using the upward technique, first miter cut one end of the profile. This corner is easy to miter cut because the profile has not been installed on the window yet. Remove about 6 inches of tape liner like before. Flex the profile into a 90-degree shape and place it into the corner. To help position it properly, use the outer frame side edge of the adjacent installed piece as a guide. Now use the IPP tool to align the rest of the profile. It may be helpful, especially for taller windows, to drape the excess profile over your shoulder for easier handling. This keeps the excess profile out of the way and from wandering left or right, which can result in waviness once applied. Remember to lead with the cutting plate end of the tool and ensure that the tool positioning flats remain pressed against both film and frame surfaces. Make a straight flat cut at the other end, remembering to leave a 1/8 inch gap. After it's been cut to the desired length, remove the remaining liner and finish aligning this section with the IPP tool. Use the roller tool as previously instructed to finish installing the vertical strip of IPP. If using the downward technique, begin by applying a straight cut end of profile into the corner, again leaving a 1/8 inch gap. Always use as little pressure as possible to gently tack this initial section. Allow the profile to drape down and keep it centered in the corner. Use the tool as previously instructed to align the profile. Using the downward method requires that you finish with a miter cut. To do this, you'll need to use the measuring pockets on the IPP tool cutting plate. Leave the last 12 inches of liner on and mark the film side edge of the profile where it needs to be cut. Insert the profile into the cutting slot until the marking meets the edge of the measuring pocket. It can be difficult to view a notched marking in the measuring pocket, especially in low light. To make the mark more visible, flex the profile to expand a notched mark, or use a white grease pencil to make your mark. Only the very edge of the profile is visible in the measuring pocket, so be sure your marking is also visible along this edge. Once the profile is inserted to the appropriate depth, cut the profile with the IPP tool. Confirm the profile has been cut to the desired length by placing it into the corner, and then finish the section with the IPP installation and roller tools. The last piece of profile, along the header of the window, requires both ends to be mitered. Here, we recommend installing IPP in a right-to-left direction. First, create a right-end miter cut. Orient the cutting plate so that the letter R is visible. Insert the profile into the cutting slot and cut. When inserting the IPP, remember that the profile's center must be flexed in the same direction as the support arch on the cutting plate. Place this mitered end into the corner and position the IPP along the top of the window. The other end of the profile also needs to be miter cut. Place a mark on the film side of the profile where it needs to be cut, and use the IPP tool to create the left end miter cut at this mark. If you find yourself having to finish a piece with a right-end miter cut, you'll have to make sure your marking extends to the edge on the inner side of the tape strip. Finish the IPP installation using the roller tool. This completes our review of IPP installation procedures. You should now be familiar with the tools and techniques necessary to install IPP correctly. For more information, visit us at 3m.com. Thank you.